Conservatives, religious leaders, faith groups, and even businesses are sounding the alarm over the left's latest threat to religious liberty. The United States Senate is set to vote on legislation called the Respect for Marriage Act, which would codify same-sex marriage into federal law. The legislation passed a key procedural vote last week with the support of 12 Republicans. The final vote is expected on Monday. Joining us now to discuss the legislation and the widespread concern over its impact on constitutional freedoms is former Pennsylvania Senator and senior Newsmax political contributor Rick Santorum. Senator, thank you so much for being with us. They call it the Respect for Marriage Act. A lot of people say it has anything to do with respect for their belief systems. Talk to us about the bill and why it would be so consequential.
Well, it codifies the Obergefell decision from the United States Supreme Court, but it puts in federal law a new definition of marriage that's never been in federal law before, which includes same-sex marriage. And this is a huge deal, because what it basically says is that this is now the national standard. This is not just a court decision, but in fact that the Congress has passed a law that institutes a new definition of marriage. And what will happen, as what has happened, it happened under the Civil Rights Act when it came to race. It's happened under other acts when it came to a national consensus passed in statute, is that agencies and courts then try to enforce that standard. Now, what the problem is in this bill is there is nothing in this bill that stops a court or an agency from doing so. There's some nice language in there, but it's not a prohibition of doing so. It's very, very weak language. And what's going to happen is you're going to see not just nonprofit institutions that are church-related, but anybody of faith who is trying to live out their faith in their business or in their lives are now going to be under attack, even more so than they are now, because of this legislation.
Yeah, the bill, as you said, has raised alarms with communities of faith, including the Roman Catholic Church, Jewish communities, and evangelicals as a threat to religious liberty. Timothy Cardinal Dolan, the Archbishop of New York and the chairman of the Religious Liberty Committee of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, released a statement, a very strong statement, saying in part, quote, "The bill will be a new arrow in the quiver of those who wish to deny any religious organization's liberty to freely exercise their religious duties, strip them of their tax exemptions, or exclude them from full participation in the public arena." He really frames it, I think, very well as a weapon against people of faith, of religious organizations. But you also mentioned businesses could also be impacted. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, there's some language in the bill that pretends to protect religious organization. It is very weak. Mike Lee is going to be offering an amendment that directly states that nobody's tax exemption can be removed because of this bill. Now, you would think, well, if nobody wants to remove someone's tax exemption because they believe marriage is what it's always been throughout human history, the union of a man and a woman, that if you don't want to take someone's tax status away, then you should vote for this amendment. If you don't, and I think 12 Republicans will not, at least that's what I'm hearing, and no Democrat will vote for this, then basically what they're saying is it's open season. They can say all they want, they're protecting them, but they're not. And then in addition, as you mentioned, there's no protection in there for someone who is operating a cake, baking a cake. Oh, there's a Supreme Court decision on it, but the Supreme Court decision is only as good as the next Supreme Court or how some court interprets that. This is going to be open season on people of faith, and it's not just Christians, it's Jews, it's also Muslims who are also, believers in man-woman marriage.
You mentioned Senator Lee's amendment. Do we think that that's even going to be brought up for a vote? And do we also think that the Senate Republicans who voted to advance this bill to the floor will vote for the final passage of the bill if Lee's amendment protecting religious liberty is either not brought for a vote or fails?
I don't know the answer to that. I would certainly, you have the list up there. I would encourage everybody from the state of those senators to call them and let them know that this is an issue they care about. They're getting a lot of pressure from the woke crowd, but you wouldn't think Republicans would be bending to the woke folks as if that's going to give them a pass. this is the thing that just drives me crazy, that when Republicans do something that is clearly against what are principal values of this country, which is marriage, a union of a man and women, and trying to promote that as a public good, which it is, because it's the most important thing we can do for the next generation, of having moms and dads form lifetime unions to raise children in stable environments, have children, by the way, and then raise them in a stable environment. And what we've seen since gay marriage became a thing is a dramatic decline in marriage and a dramatic decline in childbirth. And you can say, well, how does my relationship with someone else affect you? It affects entire societies. It just doesn't affect me. It affects me because I can't now go out and say what I want to say without being persecuted. But it also affects society in that we have less children, less stable marriages, and the children that are being raised in marriages or not in marriages at all, and the problems that come from that. So there are far-reaching consequences here.
It leads to societal destabilization, but this is the type of thing that also advances a culture of fear that the left is very good at. They're very good at making people afraid to voice their opinion, afraid to have their beliefs, afraid to live their beliefs, because they're going to be a target. They're going to be called bigots now because they would have the imprimatur of the government saying, you are discriminatory if you happen to have these religious beliefs. Let's throw up that full screen again of all of the members. And again, how can people activate? Because they don't have a lot of time here. The Democrats are doing this in a lame duck session, just like they're trying to advance some of these other issues. What can people do between now and Monday?
Obviously, they can call, they can email. I would organize protests in front of their offices. I mean, don't go to their homes. That's not appropriate, but it is appropriate to go to their district offices and have a protest out there in front of their offices. Let people know that this is something people care about and that you're paying attention to this, and they're not going to get certainly not going to get a pass from the woke mob for this, as long as they continue to vote as Republicans otherwise. So let them know they're not going to get a pass from their supporters for voting for something that is deeply injurious to the health of this country and to the future of our nation. All
right, we're going to have to leave it there, but incredibly important issue for so many folks. And again, it comes to a head on Monday. Senator Rick Santorum, thank you so much.
Thanks, Tom.